Right, yeah. So sections. There's really two different ways of setting up a section. You'll find under annotate up the top here that there is section markers, and there's under view, you can just create a new view and sort of set it up manually. There's some advantages and disadvantages in depending which way you do it. Because I do a lot of multi-unit work, I tend to set it so that my section views are already pre-set up, so that I've got the same views in every model that I'm making, and then just realign them. So if we're going to use the annotation section markers up here, what you first need to do is, if you've got stories that you're using, if I go to ground floor, and what I need to do is make sure that my fonts are set, because when I create a new view, it'll create new story markers, and making those story markers, it adopts the current font settings. So if you have that set to true type fonts, it then gets very lost and doesn't put any fonts on your story markers. So set it how you want, then go to your section marker. Very simply, a start point and an end point. Using a constraint obviously makes sense. And then through this dialogue, a lot of it's very self-explanatory. And if in doubt, for instance, what does flip mean? If I go flip and then go apply, it'll show you what's going on with the actual marker. It's just that it's which way the view is facing. Something like fill, yes, no, apply, very clearly, it shows you what's going on. So you just need to set these how you like them, and that dialogue actually remembers those settings, and you'll be right with that. Down below this line, you then have create view and the type of view that you're creating, and you can say no, which then you just have the markers. I normally use vertical sections. And open new view, yes, that means it will jump to the appropriate view. Show indicators, they're just the indicators that you can turn on and off through the view attributes. Plot scale, obvious what it is. Border, top border and bottom border, basically it looks at the model, and this is how wide and how high and how low it goes with the plot boundaries when it creates the new view. In this case, I'm going to call it section S2. One of the items here is, I like to call my views sort of longer names like section 01, but if I'm using these markers, it's what goes into this ball that is going on here. So you can't call it a long name, you need to actually call it whatever you want to reference it to. And then splitting the ball and apply will then show the bottom line, and you can put which drawing it's going to go to, of which, often you don't know what that is at this stage, and you'll have to come back and edit it later. So we go okay on that. That'll zap through, creates our new section, and the extents of the plot boundary that's created is the extents based off here to here. I think it's the outer edge of those two markers. So if you actually in your section decide you want some extra space around it for extra notes and do something like this to it, when you go back to your plan, you'll find that it's actually moved the markers. So that's one of the disadvantages in using this tool. One of the advantages is if you're here and you have the marker, you can click open the section view and it will jump you to the view. So it's sort of hyperlinked between the two. That sort of gives you a starting point. I actually don't know what happens if you actually delete the plot boundary. What's it? So the markers stay there once you've deleted the plot boundary. So they'll only adjust if you put a new plot boundary back in, and see they've disappeared way over here. So just bearing that in mind, if you want an extensive amount of extra notes, you'd probably stick that into a separate view and keep your plot boundary in a place which makes sense to the positioning of the markers on the drawing. If you jump to first floor, you'll see that the markers aren't there. You can go to ground floor, select your markers, jump back to first floor and hit show. And so you can show them in multiple views. And then they're the same marker from one to the next, keeps everything in order a bit more. When it actually comes to the section itself, we have a whole bunch of things that we bring in that are sort of standard stuff that we would put on that section. Setting yourself up well with those stuff that you bring in and how you actually apply them is what can really make a huge difference on how much mucking around you spend doing things on your section. I also use hide lines view for my sections. So right now I'll put it into hide lines, and that's how it is. Obviously here I've got fill in the walls, I've got fill in the roof, going that's not really helpful. There's two different ways you can actually deal with that. One is to have the right fill in the material. The other is to actually change your view display properties. So for instance, in here, if you right click and go to details and display, you can actually just turn the fills off in the appropriate zones. And particularly if you've got a material that appears sectioned one way, like in plane, you'd show the material one way, but in vertical section, you would want to show it a different way. That's one of the ways to then turn it off here. But the problem is you sacrifice all. So all of your wall fills will be gone if you say no. Your roof fill is different to your wall fill. Fill, no.
You changed the walls.
I did change the walls. I saw that as we went through. Yeah. And so we can rebuild, select all, and that updates. In my workflow, what I've done with this particular model, this was the one that we did for shadows, I used the sketch template. In my sketch template, all of my materials are set to a solid fill so that I end up with solid fill walls. Great for town planning, great for sketch drawings. But when it comes to actual working drawings, that's not what you want. What we do with that is I've set up a separate database. Separate database. So you'll find in that Dropbox sketch and working drawings. They're both the same template. It's just different materials. So because all we use it for is when we're progressing from a sketch stage to a working drawing stage, we go import dab, and then we go to symbols, template, working drawings, okay. Go import details.
All off.
All off. And then all we do is materials, yes, and materials override, and go okay. Select all, bring those in, and we're done. Except for we need to rebuild. Rebuild, select all. And now we're done. So that's what I do to convert from planning drawings to working drawings. I find that really useful because it helps emphasize the difference between the drawings, helps overcome some of that issue of clients going, you're charging me how much for the working drawings? And all you've done is dimensioned up the town planning drawings. Creating more emphasis between the two just helps not have those conversations.
Yeah, what happens also, I'm just the two pliers, because I've always got I always work like this and have my outside ply brick step down 170, 2 brick walls.
Yep. So what
you can't do that with the sketch walls or
Yep, because they are. What I've done with the sketch wall is they're the exact same wall.
Okay.
What I've done is instead of using a cavity, I've actually used a material called air.
Okay. So
And
that's how you've done it.
and I make my cavity air with a black fill.
Okay, so it is actually still 3 plies inside the hole, even with the sketch.
So yeah, so what you want to do is you want to have the same number of plies so that if
Okay.
you're doing any of the wall trims and all those sorts of things.
Okay, so you've still got air in
carries
here.
across. Yep.
Okay,
Yeah,
because I've always put the group offset, and
Yep.
I know. Yeah. Okay, I never thought of that way there. Okay.
You're done with it, and show the weatherboard on there, and then actually we have so for our walls when it comes to working drawings, okay. So
That's our normal legend.
Yep. So that's our normal wall legend. So when it comes to a weatherboard, like an AAC panel wall, 170 is what it is and the name of it. EPS, we go up to 190. Actually,
So there's a
don't have a
details view.
weatherboard in there by standard. Don't use weatherboards very much, obviously. So because we have so many different types of walls and so on, found that just putting a little legend in, showing what it looks like on plan, and then describing it overcomes that whole issue of, well, how wide do you make a weatherboard wall? It's a 90mm stud and it's 30mm weatherboard. It's a 120 wall, and then call it a 120 wall and let the poor carpenter work it out from the inside. Yeah, so on the details view, we then put these on plan. So we've actually got
Yeah, that's probably the worst example.
worst example. What's the best example?
The ones higher to the top are better.
Yeah, so some of these. So we've got each of those wall types then defined exactly what they are and the name, how they're built all together. So whether it's a internal insulated stud, if it's a 90mm stud, and we actually use a different grey fill on plan between the two. So you'll see that on the plan legend.
Okay.
We'll actually go internal studs, internal insulated studs, and we actually colour differentiate, grayscale differentiate them between the two. So with moving this, I have now just moved where my section is. So that's another really easy way of updating your section by using this type of section. So before I annotate this section and just let you watch how we do that, I'll just show you the way we normally do our sections is I have section 1, 2, and 3 already set up. They're like this. And I would just right click that, go details, define, 2 points, come down here, and then it works defining it via the other is a line from here to here. With 2 points, it's basically this where you want the section to be taken from and which way you're looking. So while it's a line, it's the opposite. Rebuild, select all. There's my section updated. My CPL is now 90 degrees from my view. So I just go, I'll go the long way. Tools, CPL, change, flat to view, and now it's exactly flat on the section.
What's similar to how I've got 4 sections either way: section XX, 01, 02, 03, 04, and YY.
Yep.
And I've just got them set up, and I just move them around the lines.
Yep. And if I want to, so if I go display all, put in a line now that it's flat to the view, and jump to the plan, that then puts a line where my section is, and I insert some little section symbols, which should be under
Annotation labels.
annotation labels section. I don't know.
Section marker down.
There you go, section marker. I use that one, or section. Yeah, no, section marker. and I pop him in with a dynamic rotate. And I can move him to there, and if I unpack that, so I've actually created them as a set within the what I'm bringing in. So even though I've brought it in and unpacked to a set, when I've unpacked it from a set, I've now got subsets within the what I brought in. So I just drag my section through and then hide my line, and I grab the section marker, do a dynamic rotate on that, pop him back in, and then just do a text edit on those two parts and call him whatever I want to call him. So the ball is one set, the arrow is another set, the line is by itself, and that just allows me to be able to grab those bits separately, mirror it if I want to face the other way, whatever. So that's the annotating of the section. Obviously, our stories, we're not going through the garage. Don't delete it, because if you delete it here, it'll delete it off all the views. If you hide it here, it'll be out of our way, because all of the story markers are all interconnected. And then we want to move left, move right into the appropriate spot, whether we put it hide right. So let's change to a 1 to 50. Move left, let's move them out here, hide those bits there, the section marker that I put in view all. Obviously want to make sure that we're on view current only, or we put sections. We have a whole lot of stuff that we've pre-set up for sections. Let's start with some footings. We're going to stick this on a slab. So we have whole lots of notes that are already pre-made. So if we go to Link Manager, we will see that there's a whole lot of stuff that's come in. We can actually press the top one, shift the bottom one, and we can just go unpack to set, change to, done. We're going to mirror. I'm lost again. Mirror, mirror on the wall. There you are. Change the original. Yes.
You don't use the actual.
So if I wanted a weep hole and everything, this is the set down I should have used. I can just whack that one in. Bring it towards me.
This is a problem.
Yeah.
Right. So with that, I'm now going to just go move Z5, and that should bring it up in front of the.
You need hide lines view.
And put it back into hide lines. That then hides the wall, of which in this case I didn't really want to hide the walls yet, because I need to know where it is so I can stretch down to it. So I can just stretch that. It'll be about there. There we go. So that's our edge beam. That's our top beam. Do you use this one?
Yes, I use that one for the slab. I just stick it behind the others.
Yep. So we're just working a slab like that and stretch it across. Now, the advantage of what we've done is because we're doing a 2D drawing in 3D, and we're in hide lines. So now we've got the benefit of each of those concrete elements or the footing elements are all planes. So I can actually put in a plane that's going to represent ground. Now I just use we've got some macros that just set things nicely. So I just, except for that's not going to play ball. Section
You
Earth.
you need to do your style pack.
And so instead of actually trimming, putting my plane in around and following every stump or every internal beam, edge beam, all I've done is I've just put that in, and I would move that Z -10, and that my earth will be behind everything else. If I wanted to put some sand in, I just changed the settings for sand. And I can then just go really quickly somewhere behind the slab, through here like so, and decide that that's too far down for the sand. I can then obviously just trim the edge.
Just send it behind the ground. The ground.
Yeah. So I could send it behind, or I could just trim it up. That. So I'm not putting in, a plane in here and then a plane in here and a plane in there. It's just one. And then if for some reason I need to move the edge beam, I can just grab that, or the internal beam, grab that, decide that the engineer came back with an extra beam and I want it to show it on my section. I can just copy another one, move things around that actually represents things. And by having those components all set up, it just means a whole lot less work.
This is vertical clip or?
No, this is just a vertical section. What's the right name for it? Vertical section.
Yeah, clip.
Yeah, I usually use vertical clips.
So if we go to vertical clip, it goes a long way too far, but anyway, we can do that. And then we can do rebuild. No problem.
It's still okay, it still works.
Still works perfectly fine because I'm not putting this down past the end of the building. I'm only putting it back 10 mil. Then for our roof, like obviously I've got a whole bunch of normal notes that we just chuck across, things like screw piles and all sorts of stuff. We just move them into place. Reinforced, there we go. Nudge or nudge is control on the arrows or control shift in the arrows. Yeah, arrowhead's behind that footing there. So we just need to go move Z, say 50, went too far. Now, because we're in a vertical clip rather than a vertical section, it does have a front extent to it. So you can
make it disappear.
You can bring things so close to you that it actually comes in front of the view and gets clipped out on this side of things. So move, let's try Z10. Yep, that works. And take these items and let's go to elevation 2. I can actually go paste to CPL and I'll paste those flat to the CPL on this view.
Yeah.
So I can take them from one elevation to another, from section to whatever.
Yeah.
So my CPL can be anywhere as long as I'm pasting flat to CPL.
Okay, yeah.
So these are the different elements that we've got for the roof. This element here is actually solids. So we've got that and that. They're both solids. Let's go move that over in here. So if I'm wanting to do a truss, I can just go copy. Let's Let's give him a third element. Copy. Oh, not 4. Bit of a wacky looking truss, but because it's solids, I can go slice from here to here and keep this bit, slice along here, keep this, keep this, keep this, and slice down through here. There's my trusses done. Whoops, wasn't quite right. Let's move him out. Back to the same sort of connection as that one, whether that's right or not. We're showing principle. There you go, slice him off, and union that and that. And that is my truss roof done. If that's happened to be how your truss looked at on that section, which is probably not. But
well, given that you don't have your top chord's not quite right, but anyway.
Yep. So copy, we're probably looking more like let's get rid of that bit. So this is a cantilevered eave on this one. So that would go in there like that, and then go stretch. Are these solid sections as well, or are these?
No, but you have to unpack them because you haven't used my truss roof when you've used the old one.
So there we go. Just stretch that back up into there, and move.
How do you get your roof gutter to overhang your gutter into your gutter, that 50 mil?
Sorry, how do I get
your roof covering, whether it be galline or to overhang the end of the truss and actually hang into the gutter?
I don't.
Right.
I don't either. That's getting very technical.
It looks good though.
You hide the roof and do it with lines.
Yeah, okay.
Yeah.
Or you put another roof on.
So that's the 2 plies of the roof, one that's the tiles and one that's the big fat beam that represents both the battens and so on. So what we do here is we've got these parts. I'll actually move.
I'm going to grab the end of that line at the bottom.
There, and pop him in there. Not quite. Move him up to the right.
No, you want, that's the bit that goes on the...
Right, that's right. Okay, and then we just hide the roof component, and there's our section through the roof tiles with the fascia and gutter on the end. Except for that doesn't seem quite right with, oh yeah, we have our eave lining coming in down here. This is a cantilever truss, which is a little bit different to normal. Well, it's becoming our new normal. So if that was actually the ridge, we can then put this in there, and the roof tiles themselves is just a plane with a pattern on it. So we can go trim edge of this pattern to 2 points of there and there. We're pretty close to the mark.
You do a lot of unpacking. The only thing I'm worried about, if you're doing that,
if I do bring in and unpack, either unpack to a set or unpack. There's very few things I actually link in as live links, mainly because I want to keep them, not live linked back to the database, because then if I change something as a standard symbol and I come back to an old drawing, then
It's changed, yeah.
updated and not meant to have, and it doesn't give me a proper record of things. We've got a range of things for footings, for stumps. So if we're doing stumps, we just bring those in. So that's sort of the basics of what we do with our section. The main one is using, yeah. So with our walls, we have a predefined section already done with the, you know, your plates and your plaster and everything. So you can just go move that onto there. Is that got a plane on it as well, Rose?
No,
It doesn't. So
but show them the one with the insulation. Put the one with the insulation on that wall.
that would make more sense. So move that to there. Now the insulation's done in the light color.